I'm happy I'm here then.
So guys, welcome to the, Daniel, are you joining on in here? Welcome to. Just ask questions, I guess. So, welcome to the fourth class from the Unlocking the Talmud series of lectures. Today, we're actually, up until now, we've been working on klalim Mishnah. And when we're learning the Mishnah, we don't really need to know the Mishnah, see the Mishnah as it is inside the Gemara. Whoops. That was great, fantastic.
Just so we don't need to see it.
Yeah, that was absolutely delightful.
It's called caprotis.
Yeah, no kidding. When we're learning klalim Mishnah, we don't need to see it inside and understand what's going on. Turn this off for a moment. It's gonna be anyway. So in the meantime, I'll give an introduction before we get the stuff up and going again. Up until now, we haven't really needed to know we haven't really needed to go through and learn the tzuras hadaf, because up until now we've been learning klalim Mishnah. In the klalim Mishnah, we've been learning basically from looking at the Mishnah inside and Mishnayos. And Mishnayos doesn't rely very heavily on its tzuras hadaf. On across all the publishers, it looks the same, because truth is, in Mishnah, not across all the publishers, it looks the same. I use these little Fera Mikra ones that are pocket Mishnayos. You can get big ones, you can get little ones, whatever. The Mishnah, it is not heavily relying on tzuras hadaf. Here we go. However, Gemara, there was about 180 years ago, 200 years ago, maybe a little more, as soon as printing presses started kind of getting on the line and getting easy to get to, then in Vilna, in a couple of other places, they decided they would make a standard Gemara, and the Gemara will basically look more or less the same no matter what printer you go to, no matter what publisher you go to. It's going to be the same tzuras hadaf. It's going to be the same look. Now, there's going to be, depending on which publisher you go to, there could be extra bells and whistles along the side that are aside from Rashi and Tosfos. I'm just going to go over three or four that you'll find in any Gemara, regardless. You won't necessarily find them this neatly in every Gemara. Sometimes they'll be kind of lined up along the side according to the line. In this Gemara, it has little, asterisks, footnotes here that tell you where to go in these notes on the side. But some Gemaras, instead of having the footnotes in the side, they're going to have something going along on the outside that's just on the line, and it'll be a little asterisk, and you'll go out to the side where it says in the asterisk. But first, I'm gonna.
How do you tell?
How do you tell?
Yeah, as you're reading inside, you look to the margin of the page, and you see something there on the margin. You assume that's referring to what's inside.
Yeah, if you see, what you'll see very often, is you'll see in older Gemaras, which have them lined up along with the line, it'll be a little asterisk or a star, but it won't tell you what it's telling. It's not so clear on what it's telling you. There could be asterisk that's telling you a change in the girsa, that's saying we don't have this reading, or this reading makes more sense, so we're going to change around some words on the inside. Or it could be saying, it could be an asterisk going to an extra explanation. It could be an asterisk that's going to tell you another place in Shas where you're going to look for it. And you can find, if you want to know more about this, you can go elsewhere and look. In other words, that's what it's telling you. It's telling you this is the other places you can go look, and you can look elsewhere. That said, there are going to be 4 tools here, maybe 5, up on this page that you're going to find in every single Gemara. Almost any Gemara you go to, it's going to be these same tools. So the first one we're gonna take a look at is this one up here in the corner. It is called Ein Mishpat Ner Mitzvah. So Ein Mishpat Ner Mitzvah, you're going to see it always up in the corner. Sometimes it's on the inside corner, sometimes it's on the outside corner, depending on what page. If you're, usually it's on the outside corner. It's depending on which gemara, but usually it's on the outside corner. So it's going to be if it's an odd daf, Amud Aleph, it's always going to be on the left, and if it's yeah, well, not really, but basically, so what is Ein Mishpat Ner Mitzvah telling you? Because this looks pretty unclear. I mean, I don't know about you, but it's a bunch of Rosh Tevas and saying, what's it telling you? So the answer here is that the Gemara, you're not learning the Gemara to learn what the halacha is. You're learning the Gemara to see the flow on how the pilpul, how the back and forth took place in order to arrive at the end line halacha. And that's what the shiur, in the end, all of the klalim of Gemara that we're going to learn are also learning about how that pilpul actually works on the inside. That means that you should probably learn the halacha before you approach the Gemara. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting there wondering what the halacha is, and then you'll lose track of all the different opinions that are being expressed. Because you have to understand, there is an opinion that is the halacha mekuyemes, the established halacha, and there is an opinion that's not. That's not. But they're going to argue until they reveal which opinion it is. In order to understand how the argument is going to work, it's good to understand beforehand what the halacha is. So Ein Mishpat Ner Mitzvah is a nice little thing here. It tells you where to look and what the halacha is. In the Red Oz V'Hadar Gemaras, it actually will take these and it'll print you can go and look it up in the back of the Gemara. They actually print the various halachas that are necessary in the backs of the Gemaras. In the meantime, I'll just show you here.
Is that Aramaic?
Those up there, no, those are just a bunch of Rosh Tevas, a bunch of acronyms. But I'll tell you in a second.
It's in Rashi script, that's why I look.
It is in Rashi script. Yeah. Mei Masai Korenes Shema Ba'adavin. This is the famous first Mishnah in all of Shas. It says Mishasha Kohanim Nichnasim Lecha B'Turmasan. I may remember we looked at this before. When is the beginning of the time when you would say the Shema at night? From the time that the Kohanim would go in to eat their truma. The Kohen is impure. He can't have he can't eat truma. Then he toivels, and then he still can't eat truma until after Tzeis HaKochavim, until after nightfall. So you'll notice something big sitting right here, right? Big block aleph right there. So in general, when you see the block letters of the notes here, you're going to see them. What they do is they mark where the halacha is holding. Now, obviously, there's more to understand about what the halacha exactly is. We're not allowed to paskin for the Gemara. You have to actually go and look in the Shulchan Aruch and understand how it works. But if you saw the aleph over there, the aleph is going to send me to a couple of places where I can look and look this up and understand what it is. When you see Mem Yud Yud, that stands for Maimonides. So that's telling you where to look in the Rambam's Mishnah Torah. I know you're familiar with the Rambam because you learn daily Rambam, most of you. So it tells you Rambam Perak Aleph. Pei Aleph is going to be the Perak Aleph Mehilchos Kriyas Shema, from the halacha of Kriyas Shema, halacha Tes. Yeah, Sefer Mitzvahs Gedolas, Asin Yuches. This is Sefer Mitzvahs Gedola is another Sefer Shulchan Aruch like that actually came before, and Tur v'Shulchan Aruch, in the Tur and in the Shulchan Aruch, it's in Orach Chaim Simin Reish Lamed Hey Sif Aleph, the very first Sif in Simin Reish Lamed Hey. Now, if you take a look over here, this is the Shulchan Aruch inside in the big Shulchan Aruch, As you can see from looking up here, this is Erechaim Reish Lamed Hey. So you can look at, and it tells you up in the side when in the Ein Mishpat Ner Mitzvah, it tells you what siman to look in. Siman is the chapter, and what sif to look at, which is the sif is the letter. So this told me over in. You can look at on the back of the first page in your packet has that in it. Which this is actually this tells you what obviously this is the Shulchan Aruch. This will tell you what the Psak Halacha is. In other words, what did they derive from that sugya? So what did it say? Zman Kriya Shema B'Layla Misha'a Yitzias Shlosha Kochalim Ketanim. The Gemara it basically derives from this one statement that we said. Misha'a Shekohanim Nichnasim Lecha B'Trumasam. This is one of the halachas that we derived from that statement, and that statement is that the Kohanim cannot go in to eat their truma until nightfall, the emergence of 3 stars. And so the Mishnah told us these 2 times are the same; they're equal times. So then that comes to tell us that the time for reciting Kriyas Shema at night is from nightfall and forwards. Any questions quickly on? No questions? Alright, so it's going to tell us the imhu yom me'inin if it's a cloudy day or cloudy night. Yimtin ajiyata hasafik meliba. He should wait long enough that he knows for sure it's night. Regardless. Oh, and this is. I need to work on not stepping on this thing. Regardless, so. The Ein Mishpat Ner Mitzvah, which you just saw a demonstration of here. Wait while the thing warms up again. Ein Mishpat Ner Mitzvah is a powerful tool in getting you to understand what the halacha comes from and knowing what the end din is going to be. Knowing what the end din is going to be, it makes going through the sugya a lot easier. Because at least you know, you're not sitting there wondering what the din is going to be. Yeah, any questions?
Yeah. I'm a little bit confused because we started talking about Mishnah. And Mishnah seems to be a source of the end halakha. And then we go into the explanation of how it was derived. So we've got a version of the halakha actually given to us in the Mishnah. So why are we now going further into the...
Therein lies the question.
One
of the klalim Mishnah is that one of the things is that Rebbe, the Masudar of the Mishnah, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rebbe Yehuda HaNasi, the last of the Tanaim, that he arranged it for us in a way that there would be multiple opinions. Why did he give us multiple opinions? Why didn't he just teach us the halacha? That's your question, isn't it?
It's related, yeah. It's not exactly my question, but...
He gave us multiple opinions. He talked about multiple opinions because there might be people that could come and say that they're going to paskin according to those opinions. And if we know that those opinions exist, and they're not what the halacha goes, then we can make the decision that, all right, if they come to say, we heard from so-and-so, so-and-so, then we don't paskin like that. Yeah.
Sorry, all right. So we've got halakha given, yes, in Mishnah as one source. And we also are given some of the thinking behind how the halakha is derived. So we're looking at the halakha already from 2 different ways. Now we're looking at it from another way. Now we're looking at it also from the mechanism of generating halakha. Yes? So now we have 2 ways of how do we generate the halakha.
Interestingly enough, the Mishnah, the unique thing about the Mishnah is that it's actually not a final say on anything. A lot of times the Gemara will paskin against the Mishnah. And so the point of the Mishnah is, yes, the Mishnah is telling us some dinim as almost like end like dinim, but there's various details of why that we go according to the Gemara and not according to the Mishnah. So if your question was, why are we going into...
It's like seems convoluted.
After we already know what the end
Yeah.
din is, it's the Mishnah is not the be-all end-all of what the din is. Sometimes there are multiple opinions in the Mishnah. We don't know which one goes according to the halacha. And sometimes... So the Gemara in part comes to reveal that, and in part comes to reveal the das that brought us to those opinions, how we darshan those psukim, how we interpret how we got to those positions, that even people, how they got to the Mishnah. Interestingly enough, weren't allowed to paskin from the Mishnah. We aren't allowed to paskin from the Gemara. We can paskin. We can't even paskin necessarily from the Rishonim, from Rashi's opinion or the Rosh. We have to paskin according to the Shulchan Aruch. That's who we would paskin according to. So you're wondering how we got there. There's also a question of how the changing situation in which we live affects how we apply the halacha. The halacha will never change, but there's a changing situation in which we live, and sometimes we have to interpret how to apply the halacha as it is in our specific situation.
Well, thank you. I mean,
Did
maybe I'll corner you one day because honestly, I consider myself gemorically challenged, and I'm sitting with it. I'm sitting it. No joke. You too. Okay. And I'm sitting with it. I mean, I've never come across a study that gave me as much trouble as this. And
it's gemara.
Yes. And it's. I try. I'm there every day. But it is. Very, very. I won't say difficult. It's just. It's all in its own little world. It seems, and it's very hard to penetrate that world at times.
Well, there's
at
a
times
lot.
I can. But that's why I'm taking time to ask the questions, because I say,
Of course,
I'm
it's
doing
better
this.
to ask the questions than to go not
Now I
knowing.
have a chance to. I don't want to ask these questions in shiur. It's better here. This is like because I mean it's.
Which is also a shiur.
But
I know,
it's
but
not
it's
the
not the
same as
same.
interrupting Rabbi Goldberg. That's what he's saying.
Yeah. There's other students in the room who have some degree of proficiency, and I don't want to. I'm conscious about taking another person's group's time. I don't think this is a silly question at all. I mean, but on the other hand, it's like, wow.
So,
What goes on? Yeah.
the way that we got there is the Mishnah supplied us with a bunch of different opinions. Didn't tell us which ones are. The Gemara kind of resolved some things, but also confused some things, because there were more opinions brought in the Gemara than are even brought in the Mishnah, because there are Baraisas and the like that are coming to bring in opinions of other Tanaim. And the Gemara is going to, sometimes there's 6 or 7 or 8 opinions in the Gemara. And the Gemara officially is going to poskin like one opinion, but occasionally the Gemara won't be the Machriya and will tell you a bunch of opinions, but not necessarily make it clear this is. So then that's when you have to look in the Rishonim and Rashi and Tosfos and the Acharinim and the Poskim of the Shulchan Aruch will tell us what the halacha l'maisa is, and that's how you get there. Because there is an inyan of it becoming more convoluted once you get into the Gemara.
Yeah.
But part of that is understanding that in order to get to the one kind of true, this is the way, this is halacha l'maisa, we have to go through we have to explore all the different facets first.
I'm sorry. Can I just take a little more piece of time?
Mm-hmm.
Because my question then becomes, what is the primary reason of undertaking this study? Is it to learn halakot? Well, that would be Shulchan Aruch.
That would be Shulchan Aruch.
So we're learning the thinking that led to the halakha.
Yes, and in order to learn the thinking, we have to understand all the
different
parts of how it
opinions.
got there. Yeah, and how the pilpul, how the logic works of how we got there. These tools along the side of the Gemara are intended to help you through that process and to remove some of the distractions that could get in the way. You look like you have a question. You know? Okay. Claire?
Thank you. That's good. Thank you.
And so we're going to jump back in here. The other one that I actually printed an example for you on the back page today is I actually sent you to another Masechta entirely, because it says over here, we see inside down here, yep, that he says, it tells a story, a Maisa from Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel's sons came back from a wedding, and they said apparently it was after Chatzos, after midnight, which is the time that the Rabbanan say that's the last time you can recite the evening Shema. And they said to him, "Oh, we haven't recited Shema yet." And he said to them, "Yeah, you have to still recite Shema, because the obligation for Shema goes until the break of dawn, basically, Amud HaShachar." So then he says, "Im lo alan Amud HaShachar chayvin atem likros." You still have to do it, even as long as it isn't the break of dawn yet. You still have time to recite the Shema. He says, "V'lo zil bilvad." This is not the only case where this applies, where the Chachamim said the Chatzos and the mitzvah goes until the morning. But he says, "Kol ma she'amru Chachamim ad Chatzos mitzvasan ad shel yala Amud HaShachar." So he says every case where the Chachamim said ad Chatzos, the mitzvah really is until the morning. Why did the Chachamim say only until midnight? The Chachamim said only until midnight in order that a person shouldn't, to distance a person from Avera. A person won't wait. I'll say I'm going to go to sleep a little bit first, and then I'll wake up and I'll recite my nighttime Shema, because you go to sleep, you might sleep until the morning.
Most likely.
Yeah. So, this tool here that we're going to see up here is Mesuras Hashas. It's called Mesuras Hashas. Mesuras Hashas is basically like a reference tool, kind of like an index almost. Its purpose is that it will tell you when you see the signs that look like this. It's Rashi script with a single parentheses to the left of it. Usually that's how it's going to be that's how I see it in a variety of different printers. Modern gemaras almost all have Mesuras Hashas like this. When you see those signs inside, you're going to look up here in the inside corner. Mesuras Hashas is printed on the inside, so if it's a daf aleph, it's going to be if it's an odd numbered amud. An Amud Aleph, then it's going to be on the right, and if it's going to be an Amud Base, it's going to be on the left. You're always going to see it on the inside corner, and it will point you to other places in the Talmud where these ideas are discussed. Sometimes that's really fantastic if you need to clarify something and to understand. Sometimes it's also going to tell you the source for where something is being brought. See, here's later on it's going to be a base brought from Mechilta, or you can find it in Pesachim, you can find it in Megillah. We're actually going to go over to Megillah, Masechta Megillah, which is the one I printed out for you. The idea that we're dealing with the idea that everything that the Chachamim said ad Chatzos, the mitzvahs until the morning, and it's actually the Gemara is going to go ahead and say, all the sacrifices you're supposed to eat in one day, even though the Chachamim said until midnight, then you're supposed to do it until the morning. Any time where the Chachamim said, within the case of burning the limbs up on the Mizbeach, you're supposed to only do it until Chatzos. According to the Chachamim, come to say that you're supposed to do it you're allowed to do it until the morning. Although not as soon as break of dawn comes, then that's it. Yeah. So we're gonna jump over there, which the place where we're gonna deal with this is actually we're gonna deal with it within the Mishnah. It's not even we don't even have to go down to the Gemara for this. We just go through the Mishnah. Kol hayom kosher l'kreis Megillah. Yeah, Megillah is one of the mitzvahs that we said only on Chatzos. You're supposed to at night on Purim until Chatzos. Or the Kiryas Hallel and Tkiyas Shofar, Nehilas Lulav, with Tfilas Musafin Levidui, Video Purim Levidu Meiser, Video Yom Kippurim, the Tachanun, the confession of after Meiser, after the announcement that you have to do in the Beis Mikdash, and also on Yom Kippur, the video on Yom Kippur, the Smicha, the Shchita, all these things are kosher to do all day long. The Saga, the Kamitza, this is all the Hagasha, Kamitza, Haktara, Lamilka. This is all things from parts of what you would do in the sacrifices. The Kabbalah is dam of sacrifice. The Hazaya of sprinkling the blood. Hashkia Seita to have a woman who's a Seita drink. Rifas Ha'agala and Agla Rufa if the Beis Din finds someone who was murdered and we don't know who it was and we don't have any leads, then the Beis Din and it's outside of town. Now the Beis Din has to do they have to do a certain ceremony called the Agla Rufa, where which you'll be mine in the last chapter of Saita, which explains very, very clearly on that. Well, Taharis Mitzayra, Kol Halayla kosher, L'Ksiras Aimer, and all the night is kosher for Ksiras Aimer, V'Hekter Chalam V'Avanim, Zeh HaKlal. This is, the Zeh HaKlal is what the Mesuras HaShas from over on, and the other one is going to tell us over here. Zeh HaKlal, Davar Shemitzvah B'Yom, Kosher Kol Hayom. Anything that the mitzvah batsim is during the daytime, the mitzvah is good to do all during the daytime, from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. Davar mitzvah b'layla kosher kol l'layla. So the klal is mikar adin midiraisa. Anything that he says that the halacha says, that the Torah says rather, is to be done at night. It's good to be done all through the night. Now, as long as we're over here. Just to give you an example of what the...
What does it say tefillin?
What does it say tefillin? Good question. Why doesn't it say tefillin? Good question. I haven't in depth learned the sugya, and so I haven't... I'll get over there soon, but in the meantime it was just intended as an example. Actually, most probably the Gemara is going to ask that question, but I haven't learned over there yet. You remember how I said sometimes when the Mesuras HaShas or the like are going to come out in older Gemaras along the side like this? This is how it is. You see how you see it's the same block letters or the same block letters that you see for Ein Mishpat Ner Mitzvah. Those are the same. But instead of having all of these other signs, you have these and these asterisks, and these tell you actually to go over here or to go over here. This tool that's in here, which you can see a little bit in the older Gemaras, it tells you generally where you can look when the Gemara or Mishnah is bringing a pasuk from Scripture, and that tool is called Torah Or, which is what we're switching to next. So the next tool I'm going to review is Torah Or Shalom, this guy here. It's going to be block letters with a... you're going to see it inside block letters with a parentheses by them in most Gemaras now. All the newer Gemaras have it this way, or that I've seen. I've seen a lot of different publishers, and they all have it. This is what it does is when the Gemara mentions inside a pasuk a something from Scripture, either whether it be from Chumash, whether it be from Nevi'im, or from Pesuvim, then the Torah or Shalom is going to bring that pasuk. Because usually when the Gemara quotes a pasuk, it's going to quote only a couple of words. It's almost never going to quote the entire pasuk. Also, it's not going to necessarily quote you won't necessarily know the context of the pasuk that Gemara is quoting. So Torah or is intended to give you, number one, the location of where to look for it if you want context, and number two, which is in the older Gemaras, that's all it gives. It only gives you just the location of where to look if you want context. In the newer Gemaras, it also will actually tell you what the actual pasuk is on the page. And when there's drashas going on, when you're learning a piece of Agadata, of stories or of drashas, that is probably the most useful tool on the page, because you can actually go and you can, tell you, if I had to learn a line of Agadata, like for instance, if on Daf Tes Vav Amud Aleph in Masechta Bava Basra, there's a big, huge sugya, the Yud Daled Tes Vav around there, about Sefer Eov and explaining all the different facets of Sefer Eov. Without this, there's no way you're getting through that sugya. Unless you know all of Tanakh by heart, or Sefer Eov by heart, there's no way you're getting through that sugya without this tool. It's not realistic. So what in a lot of Gemaras now also, they have something called Sefer HaMikra, or the Sefer HaMikrais, which is as much, that's what they call it in the Oz V'Hadar Gemaras, which is the ones we use, and the Red Oz V'Hadar Gemaras are going to have, as well as the blue ones also, by the way, have Sefer HaMikras in the back, and Sefer HaMikras brings all the psukim. You look them up according to where they are, and it gives a little pirush on what's actually going on. So either an explanation of what the pasuk means, or an explanation of the context. And so in a lot of new Gemaras, that resource is actually in the back as an extension to having just your Torah or on the page, and that helps you kind of it helps you understand what the Gemara is trying to tell you and how the Gemara is trying to use these psukim. So there is one more tool that you'll find in just about every Gemara. It's going to be on the page in every Gemara. Everything else, Gillian Hashas, which is, I believe, Rabbi Akiva Eger was his name, arranged a bunch of Perushim and Girsa changes according to how he he received it, and that's called Gillian Hashas. But that's not necessarily going to be. It's not going to be the Pirush that you're going to be following a lot. More likely than that, you're going to be following the Hagas HaBach. The Bach was one of the poskim. You hear about him all the time in the Shulchan Aruch. What was he? He was the father-in-law of the Shach, right? Regardless,
who was his next door neighbor?
Good question. But
what was the last name of his housekeeper? And which agency did he use?
Which agency did he use? Okay, good question. Anyway, so he in the Bach, you're going to find all sorts. You're going to find basically two categories of things. Either it's going to be a pirush, and a short explanation either of what a word is or what but mostly it's going to be changes in the Gemara. You're going to see his as Rashi's script with parentheses on both sides. Almost any Gemara you go to now, that's how it's going to be notated. For the new Gemaras, they all have Hagas HaBach in the same way. So he'll look at a girsa of a reading that we have, and he'll say, "Oh, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense," or "There's something wrong. Like I have a red flag. I'm looking at this girsa," and then he'll give you a suggested change of how you can change it in order to better understand what's actually being said. Any questions on him? Aside from who were all the members of his household?
Was he Jewish?
Where is he from?
So he's mostly mentioned in the. He's like the mostly mentioned. No, I mean in the Shulchan Aruch, as you said, Bach, right?
He is. You find him he's one of the poskim.
Poskim in the Shulchan
and he
Aruch.
was
In the original Shulchan Aruch, not the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch.
No, in the big Shulchan Aruch. We talked a little bit about the big Shulchan Aruch earlier, and we had it up on the screen what everything looks
Sorry,
like.
I thought it was at 740. The
Uh-huh.
class.
Where did he perform his scholarship?
640 or something?
If I remember properly, he was in Ashkenaz. I don't remember exactly where he was holding, but I think it was. I don't remember exactly. So, that said, in the Oz V'Hadar Gemara, which now you're going to see a couple things that only in the Oz V'Hadar Gemara and some versions in others as well. This one, you'll find this exact one only in the Oz V'Hadar Gemara, but other Gemaras have like Panini, Rashi, and others. And what it is the publishers of the Gemara decided to go around Shas and pick different Rashis that they thought would be helpful for the page, that explained the Inyanim more from other places. And they picked them and they sent them, they printed them for us down here, along with little Marim Akamis of where we can look to actually see this Rashi inside. Like over here in Masechta Yuma, over here in the okay. You'll find in some Gemaras Panini Rashi, it's basically the same thing as Likutei Rashi. It's the publishers of the Gemara picked out different things that they wanted to include. This is already bells and whistles that each Gemara will have. Particularly, it's not going to be common to all of different publishers.
Where do you know this stuff from?
I have a couple of teachers that reviewed it with me. A couple of people of esteemed rabbis who've gone through it with me and explained things. This one over here is Hagas V'Tziyunim, and that's going to be almost always more or less only in the Oz V'Hadar one. It's basically going to be doing the same thing more or less as Hagas HaBach, except that the Bach is going to be explaining according to him, and the Hagas V'Tziyunim is going to be according to a bunch of different people. It's going to say at the bottom, it says, this is according to Rashi over there. This is. It tells you each. It's basically collected from different pirushim of what possible different readings that you could have, and the difficulty of really using it all the time is that if you're using it all the time, you might end up with a kind of a patched together reading, where you might be using someone's a couple words from one person's reading and a couple words from another person's reading, and then it gets confusing. This is going to be so Reb Nisan Gain. He's on all pages, pretty much all Gemaras, you're going to find one extra pirush, more or less. Either it's going to be usually one of the Goinim, or it's going to be one of the other Rishonim. You'll find often Reb Nisan Gain, who was one of the Goinim. You'll find Rabbeinu Gershom Meor HaGola, our fantastic friend who made the Gezerah that you can only marry one wife and you can't divorce the wife against her will.
You see him a lot.
Yeah, you'll see him mostly. See, that's the thing, is he's one of these people that you're going to see printed on the side. But the purpose, a lot of times, for the people that are the Reb Nisan going, Rabbeinu Gershom, Rabbeinu Hananel, that they're going to follow a little bit different style of explaining it. That's going to be I don't know whether I have permission to say it's closer to the way that art school would put it, but it is kind of a little bit closer to the way that art school would put it. In the way that he points out, these explanations will point out to you where the questions are being asked and where the answers are being given. They'll say, Rav Ashi asks. They'll explain, they'll insert those little things within their explanations, and that can be tremendously useful if you're feeling stuck about saying, when does the question begin, when does it end? So I think that we, aside from Rashi and Tosfos, which you guys see a lot of in class, explained pretty much everything on the daf, on the face of the daf. Do you have any questions?
Yeah. How is it then, in approaching even one daf, this seems to be
overwhelming.
Inordinate, yes. So how is one to rationally approach this?
So first thing you do is learn the halacha. I'm just gonna open it up here so you see the entire thing so I can point. First thing you want to do is you want to learn the halacha 9 mishpat mitzvah. If you know the halacha before you start learning the gemara, then I guarantee you you'll be able to. It'll be better, like you're not sitting and wondering, is this person's opinion the halacha? Is this person's opinion the halacha? This one, it's about following the patterns of the inside of the gemara, and not about wondering what the end din is going to be. So the best thing is to learn the halacha first. Then you go into the pnimi of the gemara, the inside, and you learn Rashi and Tosfos. If you're not learning Tosfos and you're not at the level learning Tosfos, then for now, in hachinami, After that, if you encounter a pasuk inside the gemara, look at what the pasuk has to say. If you want to know more about an inyan, if you're looking at it and you have questions in your mind and you're wondering whether you can get this explained better, because the Gemara says something and then moves on. The Gemara says something and moves on, now you want to look in the tzuras hashas and figure out where else you can look at it up and figure it out to understand it better. If after learning Rashi and Tosfos now you still have questions, you can use Likutei Rashi, or you can flip into the back and look at some of the more in-depth Iyun Dika explanations, but that's already outside of the daf. I mean, if you still have questions, look in Likutei Rashi, and if you still have questions and something seems like it doesn't click, now you're going to want to look in Hagais Tzionim or Hagais Abach, and they'll point out to if you see one of their symbols up there, and they'll point out to you where they maybe will change the reading. They could erase a word that says lo amar, and they could erase the word lo and it says amar, and now it makes sense. I mean,
okay, I'm sorry, but I'm trying to get at something I don't even know where, but
the Seder.
Why is it? Despite I'm hearing you, I'm listening very carefully, but why is it that when we approach Daf Gemara in shiur, we don't take this approach?
We don't take this approach.
Why?
Because you first of all, you're already supposed to knowing the halacha. That's not part of shiur. That's before you even get to the page. You should learn the halacha.
To go back to kindergarten, in other words.
That's what it sounds like.
But that's the very nice thing is you take a look at the Gemara 15-20 minutes before class. You take a glance over there and you look at what it has to say. It's not too difficult to find a copy. If you have difficulty reading the Shulchan Aruch in Hebrew, then there are copies in English. I can find even probably around this yeshiva. But then where Rabbi Goldberg starts, or where the rabbis generally start, is they start in the Pnimi, and then they go to the Rashi. And that's the basic girsa is going to be Pnimi and then Rashi. And you're supposed to get the halacha beforehand. The halacha is like a prerequisite, and then the Pnimi and then the Rashi. Then as I pointed, when you're doing Tosfos, then it's Pnimi, Rashi, then Tosfos. And Rabbi Goldberg actually does occasionally mention someone changes the girsa. He says, oh, the Marashal changes the girsa, the Bach changes the girsa. He will mention, actually, and I've heard many times mention that there needs to be a little change in either, sometimes it's in the Gemara, sometimes it's in Rashi or Tosfos even, where someone erases a word or changes or adds a word in order to better understand what's actually being said.
I think we learned Likutei Rashi once, actually.
We did learn Likutei Rashi once. It was this past week, actually. We learned a little thing from Likutei Rashi. So, and there were people who didn't have the Oz V'Hadar Gemara, and so they were a little frustrated about it, but not being able to see. Other than that, yeah. So, any other questions?
No.
Probably also has something to do with just the time constraints, right?
Yeah, and I mean, we're not going to be, we're not.
Learn how to.
I can teach you how to, go here first, then go here, then, and Mamela, if you see a pasuk, look inside and see the pasuk. Not all the Gemaras, the trick with looking at and using Torah Or is that not all the Gemaras will have Torah Or at Shalom. If all the Gemaras had it, then it wouldn't be a question. Rabbi Goldberg would say and point and say, yeah, let's, in the pasuk, you want to see the full pasuk? It's right here. Sof Kol Sof. Any other questions?
Yeah, sorry. The rabbis, I mean, I have a very big amount of belief in them.
Mm-hmm.
So why are we following the pattern of approaching a daf in what seems to be the wrong way?
No. We're doing it in exactly the same way that I just mentioned. We just didn't do the prerequisite
Well,
for that.
yeah, but
Because that's not actually a part of the shiur. That's kind of, you're supposed to sit down and the shiur is to learn Gemara. Learning Gemara, I mean,
why was this never ever mentioned once?
Oh, that's a good question.
Exactly.
The truth is this is probably actually at least the first time in a long time that we've offered it to us a daf shiur, and it's important to understand the tools on the daf. There is also an Indian of if Rabbi Goldberg would tell everyone to prepare I won't get into it.
I don't even know that really the expectation, right, is that you learn Gemara, Rashi, and then maybe Tosfos if you're holding at that level. But in truth, there's Rishonim and Acharonim, and you could go look up in the back of your Gemara, and it never ends. The Gemara is a never-ending
That's what I'm trying to get at.
thing. So there's only just so much time in shiur to
I
cover.
understand. That's
Yeah. So time
Right.
also, but so that's where the rabbi starts at the Pnimi, and he goes to the Rashi and then to the Tosfos,
Yeah.
which is within this same seder of approaching the daf. It happens that you could also be learning the halacha first.
But that just the inside Rashi and Tosafos is already a lot.
That's already a lot.
A lot.
That's why we did
A lot.
And that's
what we
why
do
I
in
said,
shiur.
and that's why I said there's a certain seder of learning in which you don't necessarily ever end up. I mean, until you're at the level to do it, then you're not going to end up over here. You're not going to end up in here unless you're actually sitting down and looking at it and learning yourself. I mean, in the shiur, we're generally not going to. But
Who learns with you on this level? Do you ever learn it like yourself like that?
me, yes.
Those tools can be very helpful. On the
Yeah.
side, Likutei Rashi or
Don't you see the hair on the side?
Very helpful.
See the hair? See how it's extra long on one side and longer than the other? That's because you learn so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you get lost sometimes just looking at a simple little, like a small
A sentence.
Yeah, a sentence from Likutei Rashi or whatever it might be, it can really clarify things. It's like looking at Art Scroll, like he said.
It's. I mean, some of the things around the daf are just a more advanced looking thing. That's basically art. I mean, art school has to get it from somewhere. All the art school notes at the under the bottom of a normal art school page, the art school notes, is basically they selected Rashi's and other Pirushim from other things, and they've just put them in there. I mean,
I thought it was just to fill up the page.
the sad joke is when you see art school pages. The sad joke is when you see art school pages that are entirely made up of their notes and don't have any Gemara on them. And those do exist. I've seen them many times. But this is basically what you have in your tzuras hadaf. Next week is already going to be, I'm wrapping up now, but next week is already going to be into Unlocking the Talmud. We're going to be talking about the different puzzle pieces that make up a sugya of Talmud. There are 21 puzzle pieces that fit in their proper places. It can be rearranged in any order and substituted in one for the other, and they all have simanim. They all have words that if you see that word, it puts up a red flag that this is what it is. And that's what we're going to be mostly learning in the class. Is we're going to be learning how to recognize these simanim, how to recognize these puzzle pieces within the Gemara, and how to recognize how to take the Gemara apart and into its respective puzzle pieces and put them back together and see how they work. That's our goal in this year, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a lot.
Thank you. I'm sorry I missed it. Very interesting. Now
I
this
never heard
one
of this in
I'm
my
more.
life.
No.